Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Biblical Encouragement from Across the Pond. I'm DJ from Homegrown Ministries, joined by my friend Glenn, all the way over in Northern Ireland, and we have been going through the 10 Commandments. Today we are looking at Commandment number 4. So I'm going to start by reading that commandment. That way you have some familiarity where it comes from in the book of Exodus. I'm going to kick it over to Glenn to give his thoughts on that particular commandment. So commandment number 4 is Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. It says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreign resident in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." All right, Glenn, so that is the fourth commandment. What are your thoughts for the day on that topic?
I think, yes, we need to keep the Sabbath holy. It's very, very important, obviously. But I think some people can get so consumed about it. And what I mean by that is, I've heard of people, obviously not going to the shops, or maybe even not. I've even heard people saying not cutting your toenails. I've even heard that. I've heard of people maybe not eating certain foods. And that's fine, that's up to them. But I don't think that's exactly what God means when he says that. I think what he's saying is, you have to keep at least one day for him, at least, I don't see anywhere where it says a Pacific day, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. People have obviously picked Sunday because it's the end of the week. But, I mean, the calendar that they would have went by would have been a different calendar than what we're going by at the minute, to my knowledge. So, I mean, how do you tell what day is exactly the Sabbath? Let's be honest. But I'm going to read a verse here, and it comes from Luke chapter 6. I'm going to go from verses 1 to 5. And it says, one Sabbath, while Jesus was passing through fields of standing grain, it happened that his disciples were picking the heads of grain, rubbing them in their hands and eating them. But some of the Pharisees said, why are you doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? Jesus replied to them, have you not even read in the scriptures what David did when he was hungry? He and those who were with him, how he went into the house of God and took and ate the consecrated bread, which is not lawful for anyone except the priests alone. How he also gave it to the men who were with him. Jesus was saying to them, the Son of Man, the Messiah, is Lord of the Sabbath. And that's where I'm in that reading there. So I think what Jesus was saying is, some people can get so caught up in their rituals. It's near ritualistic. You get up, you get dressed, you go to church, you listen for your 1 hour sermon a week, and then you go home and then that's it. That's not what God wants. God, I think what he's trying to say is at least he wants every day to be like the Sabbath. He wants you to focus on him every day of the week. It goes back to the first 2 commandments, to keep him number one. So I think, obviously the Sabbath is very important. Yes, we need to keep obviously a certain day aside for God. That's where you have your communion, obviously, and then obviously go to your church and tithes and offerings and so forth. But I don't think people it should be so consumed as the Pacific day it is set, because that's what Jesus is saying to them. He's saying, you don't get caught up in that Pacific day. What he's saying is, yes, you need to keep him first and him alone. So I think that's sort of where I'm going with that and what I'm taking from that. Maybe you can add something to it. Maybe you disagree. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. I think that's important, especially for emergency workers. If you're a Christian, an emergency worker, you might work every Sunday your entire life. Right. Sunday doesn't have to be the Sabbath day. The point there being that you should at least set aside one day for God and for doing rest. Now, interesting history lesson. So my undergraduate degree is in history, so I love history. So one of the things you said that I can tell you why it happens is the Israelites celebrated the Sabbath on Saturday. And so Jews to this day, their Sabbath is still Saturday, and that's because the seventh day of the week when God rested would have been the seventh day, which would be Saturday. So the Jews just followed suit. The Israelites followed suit. They said, hey, God rested on the seventh day. We'll continue to rest on the seventh day. But when Jesus rose from the dead, he rose on the first day of the week, which was Sunday. So Christians started practicing their Sabbath as a celebration of Christ's rising on the first day of the week. So that's where the differentiation right now is between Jews and Christians in regards to which day is the Sabbath. But as you said, Glenn, what's important is not necessarily the day, but that you do set aside a time in the week to rest and to honor God. So Kelly and I, one of the things we do is every Sunday, we try to make sure that we don't do any chores in the house that are labor intensive. So what I mean by that is there are people like you said that are extreme that'll say, hey, I'm not going to cook, I'm not going to clean, I'm going to do nothing. And that's okay. If that's your personal conviction, I don't see anything wrong with that so long as you don't get legalistic with it. And my verse will kind of play into that. But we do try to spend that day on like family things. So honoring the God, resting, and then doing something with our kids and just spending the day in honor of the Lord by enjoying each other's company and nature and things of that nature, for lack of a better word. I'm running out of words this morning.
Yeah.
But the point being that we don't do anything like construction. We don't do anything like we are at one point renovating a room for 2 years, and I would not work on it on a Sunday because that was our family day. And what I've noticed in my life is any time where I will work 7 days a week, because I've done that before, my life feels miserable. Like humans need that seventh day of rest or need a day of rest. So if you're an emergency worker, if you're somebody that has to work on Sunday, that's okay. Just make sure one day a week you're getting some rest because God made you and God knows that the human body physically needs rest. And then the other thing that I want to say based on the passage that you used, Glenn, that passage is also, or that story is repeated in the book of Mark. And one of the things, I don't know if it's in Luke or not, but it's definitely in Mark, it's Jesus reminds them that the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And that kind of plays into what I'm talking about. God made the day of rest for us because we need it. So Jesus and his disciples picking food on what was designated the Sabbath didn't break the Sabbath in Jesus' eyes, in God's eyes, because that was a necessity. So you have to have some logic, right? If your kids don't eat for a day, that's not healthy. So you have to feed them, right? And same with you. So there are things, you can't get so legalistic that you choose not to do certain things that'll keep you alive. But what do you think about that?
100%. Yes. No. You have to have a bit of common sense. I think that's what Jesus was trying to tell them is, you have to eat. You know what I mean? Like you said, the Sabbath. God made man for the Sabbath, not Sabbath for the man. It was sort of, it's your time to rest. It's your time to maybe spend time with family, spend time with God. Obviously, the way I was taught in my Christian walk when I was growing up from a child was, it's God first, then your family, then everything else. So that there, I do 100% what you agree what you're saying. Yes, the Sabbath was originally on the Saturday, and then obviously Christians celebrated because of when Jesus rose. It was the first day of the week. But no, I think we do definitely need to obviously focus on what Jesus was actually saying, because like you said, there's nothing wrong with taking it easy and having a lazy day as such. That's normal. We need that. Our bodies are, they're weak. Our bodies need to rest. We need to eat. We need to, whatever. So I mean, Jesus obviously he's trying to teach them. I think have a bit of common sense. Look at the bigger picture as such.
For sure. And the Israelites at that time, they had gotten so legalistic that even carrying your mat on a Sunday was something that was against the Jewish law, right? Anything heavier than a certain weight would have been considered work. So when Jesus heals the man and says, hey, pick up your mat and walk, Jesus is commanding the man to break the Jewish perspective of Sabbath rest, because he's commanding the man to lift a mat that's heavier than what he's allowed to lift. So this plays into the verse that I'm looking at today. Comes from the book of Mark. It's Mark chapter 3, verse 4. Jesus is in the process of essentially healing a man. And he asks the Pharisees, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? So he says that, and then he heals the man. And the point being that you have to use logic. You can't be so legalistic that you strap your hands where someone's life's in danger and you go, hey, I can't help you because it's the Sabbath. I can't lift a finger. I know you're dying, but sorry. And this is why I say for like even emergency workers, for police, for those people that have jobs where you can't have a Sunday off, that's okay. Because the point being is that we need to rest with logic. And even if on a Sunday you typically designate that as a rest day, like myself and my spouse do, if something happens with my family where I have to go help someone, I'm going to go help them.
Yeah.
Because what is better? Is resting better, or is saving someone's life better? So we have to, as Christians, not get so legalistic. And I think there are times that even myself, I can find myself doing that because it's an easy excuse.
Yeah.
My wife wants me to work on that project, but it's Sunday, so I'm not going to do it. And I get that, but there is a point where that crosses a line. Again, if you see a neighbor struggling or something that would involve you or you should help, you can't just use that as a cop-out and say, hey, it's Sunday, because Jesus would have helped in that situation. So I think that's vital. But that's all I got to say about that. What do you think, Glenn?
Perfect. Yes. No. I think you've the two verses we spoke on today has very much tallied up together. So I do think that it's a very good topic, because a lot of people and a lot of churches out there would be quite against what we're saying. But the fact is, we're only saying what Jesus has already said. You know what I mean? So,
you're not disagreeing with me. You're disagreeing with Jesus. So, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, disagree with Jesus, man, I can't help you. But when you talk about churches that disagree, you'll often find people working in the church on a Sunday. You have the receptionist. You have the person that's making coffee. You have the preacher himself. So, if those are exempt, those people should still be resting on another day, right? So I firmly believe that a pastor who has to, quote unquote, work on a Sunday should find another day of rest, because that Sunday they are working, because they have to be, not only are they preaching, not only are they preparing for that, but then when the congregation is coming and going, a pastor's time is taken up by dealing with people and talking to people and being involved in their lives, and that's emotionally draining. So if you're a pastor watching this, make sure you get your rest. It is vitally important.
Absolutely.
I got to stop beating the horse past its point of death. So I'm really good at you let me talk, man. I'll just keep going. So sorry for that.
Keep going.
Any final thoughts, Glenn, about this topic?
I suppose I did something that came into my mind there whenever you were talking about make sure you get your rest. It's a day for rest, is because spiritually speaking, from a Christian point of view, whenever we're tired, hungry, or lonely, we're more prone to an attack from the enemy. It's the same with Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. So I think that's why the Sabbath is so important at the same time. It's not about us as such, it's more about us focusing on God. But I think there's other elements that can play into that as well. It's important that we get rest, because when you are low and you are vulnerable, it's whenever the enemy can come in, and that's whenever he has a field day. So I think that obviously the Sabbath is very, very, very important, but I think people need to sort of use a bit of discretion, a bit of common sense at the same time. So,
that's fair. And
not right.
What are you chasing? If you're working 7 days a week to make a bunch of money, then you're going to get exhausted, and the devil's definitely going to come after you, because it's easy. And honestly, if you are exhausting yourself, the devil might actually, and I hate to say this, but he might actually leave you alone, because that's exactly where he wants you. You're not honoring God. You're not spending time in the Word. I mean, why would he bother you? Because you're focused on things that aren't of God. And I always say the devil wants you in an armchair, chilling out, watching TV. That's what he wants you doing, because that helps no one. So, there is a point that you could be said of having too much rest in addition to that. Completely different topic, but I completely agree, Glenn. When you are exhausted, that is when you are the most vulnerable, and you need that rest to make sure that you can stay in the Word, because one of those famous quotes, the Bible will keep you from sin, but sin will keep you from the Bible. So if you're exhausted, you won't read, and if you're not reading, guess what? You're probably going to be in sin, and that's exactly where Satan wants you, because you're an ineffective Christian. You're not going to lose your salvation over it, but you'll be ineffective, and you can lead other people away. And again, I always say, God forbid that my actions lead someone away from Christianity. God forbid that.
Absolutely.
All right. You think we're wrapped up at this point?
I'd say we're finished.
All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us for so long today. We appreciate you watching. Again, if you have questions, concerns, emotional outbursts, drop a comment below. One of us may respond to you. I won't promise that because life is insane. But if we get the opportunity, we like to at least read them and hear from you guys and see how we're encouraging you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And Christian friends, please continue to be the salt of the earth, be light to the world. Go encourage somebody else today, because the world desperately, desperately needs it. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.